And then we also have Kyle Rittenhouse. He's made an announcement, and it's, there's not too many details on this yet, but it's worth talking about because, obviously we've all had a lot of interest in his case. And he's got a new
I'm pretty black pill on all the lawsuits for Kyle Rittenhouse. So I don't know how you feel about it, but I'm like, it's like when you're saying this, I'm like, I don't really see any of these working. But when you file a complaint, maybe something will pop in my head. But
yeah, it's for me, it's going to be when complaints actually do get filed, and what those allegations are, to determine how much of a case there really is. But I think the fact that he's been seemingly taking his time on this is an indication to me that he's at least being careful and being judicious about what he's doing. So there are some possible cases. So like he's referenced Whoopi Goldberg, how she was talking about calling him a murderer after he was acquitted.
Don't see it. What else you got? You
don't think that one is a case?
No.
I mean, that's the one that sticks out in my mind more than any other. I think there's at least maybe enough there that there's a possibility of a settlement in that one.
I think the case law is fairly clear that calling someone a murderer, even after like an acquittal, is not defamation. Because she's like, it's ultimately, she even said, it's like my opinion that he's a murderer. It's like she's not conveying a statement of fact. Like murderer is in some sense a conclusion. And so, yeah, I think, I mean, he is technically a killer, right? I mean, he killed somebody, so he's a killer, right? So there's many problems. Like how much difference is there between killer and murderer? And, it's an opinion statement and all the rest of it. Yeah, I don't see that going anywhere.
I don't. So, but at the same time, though, you can also have, I mean, someone can't just say something and say, oh, it's an opinion. If it's more of a factual statement and they say that it's just their opinion, that doesn't get them out of defamation.
This can be true.
So it's again, it's gonna depend on the allegations, I think, and whatever complaint does get filed ultimately. But it seems like right now he's got a program set up, and he's got he's fundraising for it. So it'll be interesting.
Well, we could just go more into Kyle Rittenhouse right now since we've already started talking about it, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, pretty much.
So here's sort of my back of the envelope analysis for the entire thing. Before the trial was over, I mean, from the moment the incident happened, for my money, this is a matter of public concern. I don't think that Kyle Rittenhouse was at that time a public figure, because you have to make purposeful steps to inject yourself into the public sphere to be a public figure. You have to inject yourself into public debate, public communications of some variety. You have to extol yourself into the public talking space.
Yeah.
And so prior to the end of trial, he's not a public figure because he's not. But it's a matter of public concern because, it's 2 people dead, a 3rd person injured, shots are fired in this conflagration of stuff. It's hard to think of how much more public concern it could get. So public concern is the same analysis as public figure. And of course, after the trial, public figure. First of all, it's still a matter of public concern, even though the trial is over. It's not like because the trial is over, people don't have a right to talk about it, right? So it's still a matter of public concern. And on top of that, he's definitely a public figure at this point because he's very purposefully injected himself into public debate by appearing on all the shows he's appearing on.
It's interesting to me though, because it's like, I wonder how much of that, and I think for purposes of defamation law, I think that you're correct. I agree with you, but I'm kind of just sort of stepping back and thinking about the policies behind that. And in his case, he's not like, okay, yes, he's going on media tours. That is an intentional, like, stepping forward and doing that. But in a sense, he already was there, whether or not he's going on these tours, on publicity tours, talking to people, sitting down for interviews. It's the even if he decided to try to hide out in a basement somewhere, he would still be talked about for a long time.
Yeah, but he wouldn't be a public figure for my money. It makes a difference because,
Okay.
again, for the same reason, like the Covington Catholic kids, right? For my money, and one of the reasons the analysis changes, at least for me, is like the
Mhm.
Covington Catholic kids thing. They were neither public figures nor a matter of public concern,
Right.
right? This incident with a drummer drumming and a kid smirking, that is not a matter of public concern.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons the analysis changes from the Covington Catholic analysis is because even though they're being talked about in media a lot, that does not make them public figures under the law. What makes you a public figure under the law is you yourself have to do something to inject yourself purposefully avail yourself of the public sphere in
Mhm.
sort of participating in the public sphere. So I don't think the Covington Catholic kids ever became public figures. I mean, maybe, way late because there been some minor interviews, maybe way late after the fact they were public figures, but not at any time relevant to any of the things that were going on in their lawsuit.
Right.
So I think
Right.
Kyle hiding in a basement would, in fact, change the public figure analysis
Hmm.
substantially. Now, I'm not sure it would matter because, as I pointed out, this is a matter of public concern, unlike the Covington Catholic kid, which was not a matter of public concern, in
Right.
my judgment.
Because
So,
you have an actual criminal charges that were
yes.
filed. That's a public hearing that is actually occurring regarding those
Plus, people are
specific events.
shot, people are dead. I mean,
Yeah.
even without
Yeah.
charges filing, that's got to be that's a matter of public concern instantly. Someone is dead, someone has been shot. The
Yeah.
public has a right to be concerned about that and talk about this. Geez, someone is dead. This
Mhm.
concerns us, the public, because someone in our community is dead. Look at them. I can see the bullet hole in them as we speak, right? So I think at the moment it happens, it's a matter of public concern. Some guy drumming and walking toward a kid that's kind of somewhat smirking is not that. It is not look at the
Yeah.
bullet holes. I can see them.
Yeah.
So yeah. So it doesn't ultimately impact the analysis because it's a matter of public concern, but I think it's worth noting, at least in my humble legal opinion, these
Yeah.
are two different legal things, and I think we can note the difference for whatever difference it might make.
Yeah. And I can see some people in the chat maybe getting a little maybe perturbed is the right word for it. About that it's when Kyle was responding to the violence, going out there, trying to, he was saying that he was there to defend the businesses, to defend the buildings and whatnot, to keep things from getting burned down, exactly, sort of keep the peace, basically. It seems like some people would be upset about, that is not necessarily a an intentional act to put himself as a public name. He's just being a person, right? Who thinks that he's just doing a good thing. And so, so that therefore, like, having that kind of analysis in defamation seems unfair to a lot of people. But I think that that's kind of just sort of what happens, because the reason for the difference in standards for defamation for these kinds of things is that you have to look at it not necessarily from, well, in some instances, from the individual's intentional choice to put themselves out there. But in other instances, it's really about freedom of speech. It's about the ability to comment on these things that are happening. For example, you could say the same thing of Monica Lewinsky.
Hmm.
Arguably very private acts that she was having, very private relationship that she was pursuing, but of very big public interest because it happened to be with the president of the United States. And then, there were issues of perjury, et cetera, that sort of developed out of there. But it's the same kind of thing. Like, you can be a private person and think that you're doing something, acting as a private individual, and the moment that there's massive public interest in it,
Yeah.
um
Well, I
then
think,
it can,
yeah.
then the analysis for defamation can change.
Well, I think it just kind of turns on private versus public, which I'm just going to kind of echo what you said, but maybe rephrase it slightly. So
Okay.
I'm not attempting to mansplain, but I'm going to attempt to explain the exact same concept in slightly different words. So let's see how that goes. All right. Anyway, so it's public versus private, right? So one of the things you get into that's kind of related to defamation, you can get into invasion of privacy as a concept that's somewhat related to it, right? You're exposing private facts to the world. And so this is kind of, they're related, because when you're a private person or it's a matter of private concern, or you're talking about private individualized facts, it's a private matter. And so if by talking about this private matter in the public space, you are bringing something that's private into the public space. So you are injecting this private matter by your actions into the public space. So you, the defamer, are the one that's making that choice. And by doing so, it's like, okay, we're going to hold you responsible for that additional step, right? By injecting it into the public space. So we lower the burden of proof because you made that decision. But if it's already in the public space because they're a public figure, a matter of public concern, it's like, well, you didn't make the choice. You didn't make the choice as the defamer. It is already there. So we're not going to hold you responsible. So it's this elevated standard. So that's also part of the logic as I re-explain the same exact concept. So
no, but it's good. It's good because you did it in a slightly different way. So if somebody didn't understand the way that I put it, maybe they'll understand the way that you put it. So
I feel instantly self-conscious.
You shouldn't, because if I were a dude, you would have done the same thing.
Yes.
So same.
Well, I didn't go, well, actually.
Actually, it's this. And speaking of dudes, and good dudes at that, we have with us Mr. Nathan Lawyer. How are you, Nate?
Hey, what's going on, guys? How you guys doing?
We were just talking about, Kurt says he's mansplaining. We were just talking about the standards for defamation regarding Kyle Rittenhouse.
Yeah. I feel bad for the kid, but he's not winning no defamation lawsuit. It's over.
Not even against Whoopi.
Nah, not even against Whoopi. He has nothing. Have you guys seen Whoopi can use the Rachel Maddow defense, obviously. The show is literally called The View.
That's
right?
true. That's a very good point.
That helps a lot.
The View, yeah, it's my point of view, my opinion. So if Tucker Carlson, I don't know, did you guys ever read the Tucker Carlson case against the Playboy model?
The Tucker Carlson defense, Rachel Maddow defense, yes. So for anyone that's not familiar, they basically, despite the fact that they, are talking heads on MSNBC and Fox News, I'm sure you're familiar. They, and those both purport to be news agencies. Their defense in their respective defamation cases was that no reasonable person who watches their show would think that they were giving facts. They would think that they are giving, their opinion, and it's entertainment only. Basically, it's just it's no one would actually take them seriously for any factual assertions that they make, which is such a crazy thing for them to. And they won. They succeeded, which is that's even crazier to me.
Yeah. It's weird because a lot of people don't understand the nuances of defamation. It's more than just saying something that's false. It's also in the context in which you're saying it. So saying something false, for instance, like with Nicholas Sandmann, they were saying it under their news umbrella. So CNN as a news organization was saying, well, this is true as a news organization. That's different than Tucker Carlson saying it on an opinion show. Yeah. So that context matters. And First Amendment defamation law, saying it under the umbrella of an opinion show, loses any real protection for the defamation. Because it's not about what's being said at that point; it's about what a reasonable person believe it's true. And on an opinion show, most reasonable people don't believe the opinion shows are giving you truth.
And if you think about it, that also just incentivizes these big news agencies to have less factual like news programs and more editorialized kind of commentary programs, which doesn't help the public at all.
Yeah. Because now I think places like Fox News, when you watch Tucker Carlson or you watch their opinion pieces, this all says Fox News, but it's not. It's opinion. So they don't really change all the branding. They just kind of just say it's propaganda show. And the same thing for MSNBC. It's the same thing. 1 hour you're talking about hardcore news, and then the next hour you're talking about opinion shows. So it's hard for the viewer, and most viewers don't realize that Tucker Carlson's not news, but
Mhm.
and legally they are news. So